Kia ora everyone, my name's Dave and I'm the chairperson of the TTM Industry Steering Group. The Industry Steering Group was set up in 2023 to manage and help the transition of the New Zealand TTM industry to a risk-based approach to TTM. That transition involves a number of moving parts, one of which is training and competency. As the warrant system for waka kotahi is due to expire, we need a new credentials framework to take our industry forward. The Industry Steering Group supports the establishment of a new credentials framework managed by the TTM Credentials Framework Working Group, and they've done a great job at putting together something that can serve the industry going forward.
We are the TTM Credentials Framework Working Group. We formed in October 2022. We've been working on a credentials framework ever since then. We have formed this group to represent industry to work on a new credentials framework system because waka kotahi or NZTA's warrant system will be expiring. In collating this framework, there's been some extensive research done, sponsored by Concove, carried out by Becca, to go worldwide to look at what other framing and competency or qualification models we could learn from to better develop the current one that we're proposing today. The purpose of this video is just simply to share the proposed framework.
There was a call by CCNZ for expressions of interest to represent industry bodies in order to design the new credential framework. The group was formed and is compiled of 13 members and 3 non-voting members. These are, firstly, introducing myself, Betty Mitrova, as the chairperson of the TTM Credential Framework Working Group, and additionally the Tier 1 representative for down in New Zealand, alongside Chris Kerr from HEB and Paul Tyson from Fulton Hogan. We then have 2 representatives from the RCAs, the first being Tom Kittle for the North Island and Sean Maxwell for the South Island. Then we have Bruce Goodall, providing representation for the Road Marking Federation. Corin Wharero, representing the utility sector, Kim Lawrenson, providing representation for New Zealand Transport Agency Waka Kotahi, Lena Tyrell as a worker representative, Melanie Murison, representing ACE New Zealand, Tony Stella, providing representation for TTM trainers and assessors. We have 2 representatives for TTM suppliers, one for the North Island, Wayne Clark from Chevron, and one for the South Island, Joe Allen from South Roads. The 3 non-voting members are Sue Hawkins, providing representation for Waihanga Araro, Sue Roberts, providing representation for Connexus Te Pukenga, and Dave Tilton as the appointed secretary.
As TTM practitioners and designers, we need to manage risk. That's our core responsibility. In the past, we've managed risk by looking at how fast a road is or how much traffic it carries. We need to move past that into what we're calling the layered risk responsibility model. Our layered risk responsibility model has 5 layers. The first layer talks about following specific instructions. This is about people that work within teams and simply have to follow instructions and make sure they keep themselves and other people safe. Moving on, level 2 is about basic situational awareness. So being able to look around you and see what risks might be present and adapt to those risks at an individual level. Level 3 is about regular risk assessment and mitigation. So that's where an STMS or someone in charge of a worksite can take the risks that they have around them and use an existing TMP to mitigate them. Further responsibility beyond that is about dynamic risk assessment. So that's different conditions, dynamic environments, where things are less predictable. And lastly, influencing safety culture. Those at the supervisory or managerial level where they've got a bigger responsibility for making sure safety culture across their team or their department or their organisation is strong. This layered risk responsibility model is important as we look at the framework because it describes the different responsibilities to do with risk that are integrated into the framework itself. As someone progresses through the framework, you'll see them take on more responsibility to do with risk management aligned with this model.
One important thing to highlight in this framework is the difference between PCBU responsibilities and the qualifications gained off this framework. So the framework will give you qualifications that show you've got skill or competency in a certain activity, but the PCBU has got an ongoing responsibility to ensure consistent competency throughout the year, throughout the years of an employee's life, to make sure there's good, deep understanding and good practice being performed every day, So important thing to note, this framework provides a suite of skill standards for individuals working within the roading corridor or the roading space. The remainder needs to be in the hands of the PCBU or organisation. So think about what the framework does provide for you as an organisation and what might sit outside of it and what sort of training you might need to do for all your staff.
It's important to understand that this new training credentials framework is quite different from our historical warrant system managed by Waka Kotahi. The credentials framework is based in NZQA's National Qualifications Framework. That means that all of the private training establishments, polytechs, or even industry training organisations across New Zealand have access to that framework and might consider delivering modules or parts of it. Each module or part might have a different training method. An important benefit of having access and integration with the New Zealand Qualifications Framework, managed by NZQA, is the flexibility of delivery. We see different delivery mechanisms across the country being used. Things like apprenticeship models, in-house training, block courses, all of these become options to increase the access for employers and people to this framework.
The next part of the presentation is a more in-depth explanation of the terminology and the framework itself.
A skills standard forms the building blocks of vocational qualifications. They identify the types and levels of skills that an individual needs to do their job. Micro-credential is a small standalone award with a set of learning outcomes. They recognise learners' skills, experience and knowledge. A New Zealand certificate is a collection of standards. It is generally obtained after a more extended period of study or work experience. Recognition of current competency, or RCC. RCC is a tool that providers can use to assess people on their skills and experience.
This is a representation of the TTM Credential Framework overview. It is split across TTM delivery and TTM specialisations. Looking at the TTM delivery, we have 3 initial entry points. The first to the left being low risk, low impact work. Then we have mobile work and TTM work. TTM supervision is made up of various skill standards in addition to mobile supervision and TTM monitoring. As we progress down, we have advanced TTM supervision. TTM specialisations is built up of modular learning blocks that start off with TTM knowledge. It then progresses into risk assessment in TTM, branching off into TTM design, TTM corridor management, and TTM assurance. Furthermore, there's an opportunity to progress through into advanced TTM design.
The low risk, low impact work credential is an entry point for individuals whose primary activity is not involved with temporary traffic management.
Mobile work. This is an entry point skill standard for people working inside a mobile operation, but does not cover supervision of that operation.
Following on from mobile work, mobile supervision is a credential designed to provide the training and skills for supervisors of mobile operations.
TTM Work Credential. This is an entry point skill standard intended for individuals assisting with installing, maintaining, operating, or removing TTM. It is designed for those who contribute to a team's performance in TTM work, but does not cover supervision of the operation.
TTM Monitoring Credential. This is a skill standard for individuals who maintain a pre-established site. It includes elements of risk verification and monitoring for attended sites. All sites must be risk assessed by the PCBU to determine the suitability for TTM monitoring.
The TTM Supervision Credential includes all of the elements that make for a safe and effective STMS out on the road. It includes the installation and removal of temporary traffic management, static operations, leadership, quality, assurance, and a whole bunch of other building blocks that really create a good and effective STMS who can deal with a range of complex scenarios across New Zealand's road network. Another big component of this credential is risk. Risk sits at the centre of this entire framework. Additionally, this credential includes a leadership component. How do you lead a team? How do you manage a team? How do you keep that team safe? And how do you manage the risk of the public, the clients, and other road users out on site?
Advanced TTM supervision. This is a proposed Level 5 qualification for experienced STMSs to further develop their skills and experience in managing risk in complex and dynamic environments. It's a great opportunity for them to progress their careers in the industry.
TTM knowledge focuses on understanding how the different TTM controls work to manage people that may interact with our activities and events. Its primary intent is to ensure that we understand the fundamental TTM controls and how these may be applied to manage risk.
The risk assessment in TTM credential is a new credential for our TTM industry. Something we've realised is we need to level up our capability of understanding and managing risk. This credential provides baseline understanding of how risk materialises in TTM and how best to manage it, and provides practice and competency for practitioners so that they can better understand and manage that risk in the field.
Corridor management is focused on coordinating activities within a road corridor. It involves effective consultation, coordination, and cooperation with other stakeholders accessing the network.
The TTM design credential is all about taking all of our understanding of all the risks and all the controls we have and applying that to a specific TTM problem, coming up with a comprehensive and effective TMP that our field staff can use and implement safely.
Following on from TTM design, advanced TTM design supports people developing complex and comprehensive traffic management plans that deal with complex situations and high levels of risk.
TTM Assurance Credential supports people to review and monitor TTM worksites and system to identify risks and to ensure they're mitigated appropriately. It also provides skills necessary to undertake quality control and monitoring to ensure that what is planned is actually done.
What is the time frame on the TTM framework becoming available?
So this is going to be progressively available as the teams work through the development of the credentials, and they'll be available in a modular format, and obviously as different credentials come on board, they'll replace out some of the current model. The first 2 credentials will be available in 2024, and the transition to the full model is likely to be in the next 2 to 3 years.
With the warrants going, will there be recognition of previously achieved NZ credentials or qualifications?
Yes. On a case-by-case basis, each credential will be mapped with what evidence or existing qualifications might match what's been released. And that process can take place when each credential is released, and then people who have appropriate existing competence can migrate across to that new credential based on whatever the provider of those credentials decides.
Should I still be obtaining or refreshing my warrants or waiting for the new TTM framework to be implemented?
Keep training. Keep obtaining existing warrants because that's the current system we're working with. And it's important as an organisation or a PCBU to make sure you offer training and instruction and supervision to all workers. And the new credentials framework will be implemented in a modular fashion, with some parts being turned on and the old warrant system being turned off piece by piece, which means you're going to need some of these warrants for a while into the future.
Who is managing the transition plan for industry moving to the new TTM framework?
The New Zealand TTM Industry Steering Group will lead us through that.
Why is Wakakatahi dropping the warrants?
Actually, it doesn't really matter why Wakatahi are dropping the warrants. It's actually an opportunity for the industry to take on the credentials and actually develop something which is useful for the industry to undertake their work. So what we're seeking here is actually your feedback to improve this framework.
What are the cost implications of the new framework?
We've heard the industry, and cost has been a major concern in previous renditions of training and credentials frameworks. This has been a central focus for our group, and we've worked really hard to provide this proposal that allows more access and opportunities for funding or subsidies through educational providers that should get passed on to the learners. We're hoping that'll be a big benefit to the industry. How will refreshers work in the new regime?
Well, it's actually the PCBU's responsibility, not the responsibility of the framework, to ensure ongoing competency. Unit standards are actually only issued once in the NZQA framework. So this approach is quite different to the current Wakakotahi NZTA process. How we transition from the current one to the new approach will be part of the working group's activities over the coming months.
So having heard all of that, we need your feedback. The next couple of weeks will be very critical as we start to engage with the industry and request feedback on the current proposal. As the ISG starts to ramp up its communication, we need you to keep an eye out on any newsletters and the website. If you haven't already done so, it's important that you sign up so you can receive all the important documentation that will come out post-webinar and post this video.